The United States is under attack from a foreign power, but not by bombs and bullets. Instead, an offensive in cyber and information warfare is targeting both critical infrastructure and democratic institutions.
A 2-year, multi-stage effort by Moscow targeting the U.S. energy grid.
A complex campaign by Russians to interfere in the 2016 election.
But to understand what's happening in the U.S., you have to look to Eastern Europe, where a new Cold War is changing the face of conflict on both a virtual and physical battlefield. Here we are in Lithuania. We just left the capital of Vilnius, on our way to Rukla, where there's a military base where we will observe some NATO exercises. Hi, Lieutenant. Hi, Liz. Nice to meet you. Battle groups from NATO countries exercise at this Lithuanian military base. After Russia annexed Crimea and invaded eastern Ukraine, NATO troops were deployed here to deter aggression from their unpredictable neighbor. Today, Dutch and French troops make up the multinational battle group, rotating through here for 6 months at a time.
Just stand on the seat.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
We're gonna drive now. Hold on tight because it's bumpy.
All right, just hold on.
Best will be if you hold on to the gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
That's a reconnaissance vehicle.
So by that you mean information gathering?
Yeah, we're at the battalion level reconnaissance units. So our main purpose is to, from the battalion, they have named areas of interest, and that will be areas where they suspect enemy positions will be.
The battle groups deployed here and in other key areas in Eastern Europe aim to enforce a key pillar of the NATO alliance: that an attack on any one of the 29 member nations is an attack on all of them. What are some of the unique challenges here in the Baltic region?
Well, first of all, it's of course the weather. If you look around, it's very cold. It's something that we are not used to from the Netherlands. It also gives us the opportunity to conduct exercises in terrain that we are not familiar with, and to train with countries that also have equipment that we are not familiar with to train with. So it has a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of challenges.
What is your main mission here?
To deter a possible aggressor by showing the willingness of the NATO partners to work together. If it needs to be done, be able to defend Lithuanian territory.
Cell phones of NATO troops conducting exercises have been hacked before, so they've been instructed to take cybersecurity precautions.
Disinformation, yeah. The common word for it was fake news, of course.
Yeah.
It happens everywhere. Several times we were warned for hacking our cell phones and everything. And I think we are pretty much aware of the fact that that is happening at the moment.
NATO has changed a lot. First, we had the missions to Iraq and to Afghanistan, and we have been doing a lot of things, been busy focusing on the peace outside. But suddenly, because of the changes in the European security environment of Russia's behavior in Ukraine, it concerned a lot of neighbors. NATO went back to the roots, the collective defense, and we found out again we had to have a deterrent role, because we are not interested in a conflict, and NATO was established to have a peace in Europe.
NATO has enhanced their presence in the Baltic region by land, sea, and air.
Our mission is to assure the sovereignty of the airspace over the Baltic countries. And airspace policing is a peacetime mission. It's one that's done throughout all NATO airspace over all NATO countries. The difference up here being that the Baltic countries do not have the assets to do them themselves, so NATO steps in and provides it for them.
Hey, alarm go!
This started off as a training exercise, but later we learned it got real. We were told the pilots were sent out to intercept a Russian fighter jet en route to Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave that borders Lithuania. NATO says the Russian jet was flying with its transponders off, failing to comply with international aviation rules. What is it that you look for when you're up there?
Well, we always scramble for unidentified aircraft, so aircraft that that's not squawking. So the civilian authorities, they don't know if it's a military jet or if it's a civilian jet. So that could be something we will scramble for. Usually, it's military jets.
Russian military jets usually, and sometimes they get alarmingly close. A couple days later, a Russian jet intercepted a U.S. aircraft flying over the Black Sea, coming within 5 feet. A move the U.S. State Department said was flagrantly violating existing agreements and international law. But the battle between NATO allies and Russia is largely happening off a physical battlefield in a covert information and cyber war.
We're not talking about Cold War weapons, we're more talking about hybrid threats, or asymmetric, whatever you can call. Not much to do with the tanks and rockets. It's energy security, it's cyber, it's strategic communications, or this false information which is spread, well financed. So this is really something we have to take very seriously, because until recently it was underestimated, I believe.
For years, Lithuania has been sounding the alarm on an information war waged by its neighbor. Being so close, Russia's your neighbor, and you're very aware of how destabilizing this can be. When you see this kind of destabilization effort impacting the United States, does that set up some alarm bells for you? Does that worry you?
Again, I believe not just us. And in cyber war, distance means nothing, you know. And as you said, it was the United States was attacked, but not just states. There's meddling in the elections in France. The efforts to make a coup in Montenegro, if you remember. It's not just cyber game, it's a big threat. Again, it's meddling into the political system of sovereign country. It's a very big challenge.
Government websites here have repeatedly been hacked. And recently, the website of television station TV3 was hacked again. This time, hackers posted a fake story about the defense minister, accusing him of sexually harassing a male journalist.
Here should be no way for any retreat. That's very important, because we again hear voices, let's be flexible, let's cooperate. Fine, let's cooperate, but let's make rules. Let's make a rule-based system. Otherwise, we'll lose everything, not just control, everything.
As European governments battle Russian meddling, U.S. intelligence say Russian operatives intruded in the 2016 presidential election. One method, hacking the Democratic National Committee and spreading the stolen documents online to sway public opinion. A particularly menacing part of Russia's information war is manufactured in St. Petersburg, Russia. A so-called troll farm employs hundreds of people to flood social media with anti-Western messages. They also stoke divisive social and political issues, spread false stories, and planned rallies on U.S. soil. An investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 election indicted the Internet Research Agency and 13 Russian nationals associated with the operation.
The defendants allegedly conducted what they called information warfare against the United States. with the stated goal of spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general.
Long before the bombshell indictment in the US, Europeans closer to Russia's borders took notice of the intensifying digital information war against the West. Some Lithuanians are taking it upon themselves to battle the trolls, countering their false messages online. They call themselves the Baltic Elves. One that goes by the name Hawk agreed to meet with us as long as we conceal his identity.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What exactly do you do?
You're defending your country not only with the guns in your hands, but you can defend your country with a computer.
Right. Because you saw so many comments from Russian trolls that you suspected Russian trolls.
Right.
And did you feel that they were doing real damage? That they were,
yeah, of course,
that they were really impacting people's points of view?
Yeah. They're trying to get in a, we are saying, under the skin. That they're trying to show that everything is bad. Lithuania is like a lost country. The NATO is bad. United States is, it's empire of the evil, and it's not true. And we hated that lies. We're fighting not only for Lithuania. We're fighting for the free world.
How many elves are there?
It's difficult to say. We have small organized groups, and they're working, let's say, undercover. And we have, like, we're calling public elves, so they're quite big public groups. And I can say that we have close to 4,000 active elves.
The elves say they've successfully sank the social media rating of Sputnik, an online Russian propaganda outlet. So you're up against a big operation. Do you feel that the elves stand a chance against the trolls?
Yeah, of course, because we started like small group of 30 people, and we now like 4,000, and it's growing up, and it's a good thing. It's getting trendy. We're selling ID, we're selling values, we're sharing the same values. I think with the guys in Germany, France, and United States, we're fighting for freedom. Yeah, truth always wins, but sometimes it takes very long.
Ukraine is a key front in the global hybrid war. 4 years ago, 100 people died in a revolution sparked in this square. In the chaos, Russia moved into Ukrainian territory and annexed the Crimean Peninsula. Over 10,000 people have died in the Russia-fueled war that followed in a region of eastern Ukraine called Donbass. At the same time, cyber experts see Ukraine as a testing ground for Russia's cyber warfare.
Thousands of people in the Ukraine left in the dark, literally, after hackers infected the country's electrical substations with malware.
To this day, Russia doesn't acknowledge its role in any of this and churns out false stories to impact public perception of the war in Ukraine.
My dad was angry, and it was grieving, and we were passing coffins over our heads.
Paul Nealon lives in Kiev and was here during the uprising. He's written about how the war has evolved throughout the years.
The corruption that we were seeing from Yanukovych and the people around him was blatant. It was in your face. It was disgraceful.
Jubilation on the streets of the Ukrainian capital as protesters took control of Kiev and President Viktor Yanukovych was impeached.
Do you believe Russia is conducting an information war against Ukraine?
Absolutely. If I play a small part in this, then my part is in fighting the information war a little bit. And often these debates that I'm having with people on Twitter, that's what informs me. That's what informs me of the latest narrative that's coming out of Moscow and tells me the next article that I need to write is addressing this topic because of what these trolls are trying to throw at me and fight me with. But I will not tolerate a conversation where people are accusing Ukraine's armed forces or Ukrainian people of being Nazis or fascists or anything like that. That's a horrible lie that was created. So if you want to send an army to go and kill people, the first thing you must do is dehumanize them. Russia's not intending at any time in the near future to be backing off from the information warfare that's not just targeted against Ukraine, but it's targeted against democracies everywhere.
Some Ukrainian citizens have decided to take the cyber battle into their own hands And a couple of these hacktivists have decided to meet with us as long as we keep their identities a secret. In late 2016, Ukrainian hackers leaked thousands of emails linked to a close aide to Putin. The documents exposed the Kremlin's plans to destabilize Ukraine and support separatists fighting the war in the east. So here with Chris Townsend and Jeff, those aren't your real names, but you're both part of Ruhate. It's a hacktivist group. Can you describe what do you do as cyber hacktivists?
We are trying to get as much information as we could about Russian military involvement in East Ukraine, Russian subversive operation, Russian command. We publish this information, we pass it to intelligence communities here in Ukraine to counteract Russian aggression, and our final goal to weaken it and to make our victory closer.
They're waging a cyber war on us.
And who is the target? Who's the enemy in this war?
For us, the enemy, of course, it's Russia and their proxies.
Do you work with the government? Do you collaborate with the government?
Sometimes we unofficially pass information to security service of Ukraine, to our military, but it's all unofficial.
So you're volunteers, you're volunteer hacktivists.
Yeah.
And why do you feel like it's so important to take matters into your own hands?
I don't know, because we're citizens of Ukraine and we've been like patriotic, and we have only one country, it's only one chance in history to gain our independence and to live on our soil.
So you see this as a patriotic duty?
Yeah, why should we give it to someone who's been oppressing us for some 70 years?
So to this day, President Putin has denied fueling the war in eastern Ukraine. Your hacking, have you been able to expose the opposite?
As far as you know, Russia's denying everything. On one hand, they're shelling our ground, on the other hand, they're talking on the microphone that it's not us. Yeah. On the other hand, we did obtain the huge amount of data, they're proving their presence here and the operations here, and they're saying, no, it's a fake. They're hacking into our critical infrastructure. Oh, no, it's not us. They're hacking into DNC. No, 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 you misunderstood us. It's not us. Yeah, here's the proof of your cyber operation. No, it's not us.
And the proof is, what is the proof?
They were using hackers, black hat hackers, to do some operations on DNC. They used techniques that were used by cyber criminals and black hat hackers.
Fancy Bear, yeah, that is the group that is suspected of hacking the US election.
Yep.
The
different names like POSIB, FANCIB, APT29, APT28, they're connected or even the same one group.
Mm-hmm. And do you believe that you're dealing with the same entities, the same hackers?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you know?
Basically on our experience and techniques they are using.
Each attack leaves a few traces, but if you view situation as a whole, you find connections here and there, and it's all became clear. It's the same people.
Robert Lee did the analysis of the attack on Ukraine's power grid that left hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians in the dark. Ukraine has been targeted relentlessly with cyber attacks. Do you think Ukraine could be used as sort of a testing ground for what can happen here in the US?
I do. So for these adversaries that are already going after Ukraine in various ways, they're absolutely becoming sort of battle-hardened, if you will, in terms of their skill sets and learning how to target these infrastructures. That skill set and that knowledge can absolutely transfer to other countries, including ours. And in fact, a lot of the systems that they use in Ukraine are the systems that we use around the world. A lot of these industrial systems are global in nature.
So these hackers are kind of perfecting their skill.
Absolutely.
So a hacker can compromise this computer.
Right.
How do you make the leap from hacking this computer and being able to control an industrial control system?
Yeah, absolutely. So When you think of like your office networks that people are working day to day, there's still connections from those office networks to the industrial communication side of the house because they have to get data out of those networks for business purposes. How many people are using electricity today so that I can bill them correctly. So through those interconnections that already exist, an adversary can pivot from those office networks through that communication down to the control networks. And we could even start controlling things and say, okay, open up the solenoid, let's go ahead and turn on the pump and the heater. Behind the scenes are the systems that then would actually be making the changes. These are generally what we call our logic controllers. So on each one of these systems, they are kind of like little mini computers. They have logic that then controls the physical systems, and then you can make changes in the physical environment. This is as simple as it would get, where in Ukraine-style scenarios, the adversary might just be opening and closing circuit breakers to be able to disconnect power. But what you're really talking about is the ability to impact the physical environment through digital means.
That leap from hacking computers to physically manipulating critical infrastructure is rare. The hacking of Ukraine's power grid is one of a handful of examples of it ever happening. As a result of Lee's analysis, Democrats urged the president to act on protecting energy infrastructure in early 2017. But that action wouldn't come until over a year later. We're seeing in the cyber hacks that are dominating the headlines today that it's become highly politicized. Mm-hmm. Does that worry you when it comes to security of our critical infrastructure, that cybersecurity has been politicized?
As someone who used to work in the intelligence community, seeing the politicization of FBI, NSA, CIA, etc., is only really damaging. Extend that same discussion into industrial infrastructure. The idea that we could answer anything without bipartisan support is ridiculous, but especially something as easy as maybe we should keep people out of the power grid. Like, this is not a difficult challenge.
Current and former U.S. government officials have long warned of a catastrophic cyber attack, including former head of the CIA and Department of Defense, Leon Panetta.
The collective result of these kinds of attacks could be a cyber Pearl Harbor, an attack that would cause physical destruction and the loss of life.
Cyber is without question the battlefield of the future. And the development that has taken place in cyber technology continues to increase. And we know that you can develop the kind of sophisticated virus that could literally destroy our infrastructure and destroy computers. And if it has the capability to do that, then I think the threat of a potential cyber Pearl Harbor is very real.
What would that situation look like? What would a cyber Pearl Harbor scenario look like?
You could take down our electric grid. You could take down our transportation system. You can take down our financial systems, our government systems, because they're all computer run. We've seen what Russia can do with cyber in going after our election process. If an adversary got a hold of a destructive virus, cyber virus, they could literally deploy it in a way that could paralyze our country. That's a reality.
The Department of Homeland Security recently accused Russia of targeting U.S. energy infrastructure starting in March 2016. Its cyber and information operations targeting the U.S. election likely began in 2014 under the Obama administration's watch. Do you think that we kind of missed the ball on this, that we didn't see it coming, that we weren't prepared or underestimated that?
Yeah, I think we totally underestimated the ability of the Russians to use this kind of capability to go after our election system in this country. I think it took us by surprise.
The Trump administration eventually responded to Russia's cyber meddling. In March, the Treasury Department sanctioned Russian cyber actors for interfering in the election and attacking U.S. infrastructure. That came after a deadline set by Congress. The administration is also opening a new office to protect against cyber attacks on the energy sector, though lawmakers, both Democrat and Republican, worry that effort doesn't go far enough.
We've requested funding to increase and strengthen cybersecurity, as well as the
Department's cyber defenses, we're establishing a new Office of Cybersecurity. This is our response to the clear challenges that the sector has. We are committed to being as technically advanced as possible, and it's the reason that we request the funding.
Concerns about the U.S. ability to deter Russian cyber threats are shared by the current leaders of U.S. intelligence agencies.
I believe that President Putin has clearly come to the conclusion there's little price to play here, and that therefore I can continue this activity.
Intelligence officials say Russia is already working on their next target, the 2018 midterm elections.
Putin is going to take advantage of a situation where he believes that his adversaries are weak. I think he has for a long time felt that the United States is weak in terms of its willingness to retaliate against the Russians and what they do. That they've got a free ride to do whatever they want to attack this country. And that is exactly the wrong message.
And to do it again, we have an election coming up.
To do it again and again and again. It's an invitation, really, for the Russians to do exactly what they did in 2016. Cyber is the new battlefield for the future. And that's where the wars are going to be fought. And we damn well better be ready for that kind of war.